Welcome to Big 550 KTRS.
Thanks, McGraw. How are you?
So explain to us what just happened in this last 24 hours.
Everything is in order for this to take place.
Okay.
The venue site, the ownership group, which is substantial.
Right.
You just mentioned Jim's name. Jim, more or less, I think is going to be the voice and our face of this particular group. Everyone has been speaking. This group in particular has been speaking with the MLS Commissioner's Office on a regular basis. That includes Don Garber, Mark Abbott, Dan Cordemanch, but perhaps most importantly, members of the expansion committee, Robert Kraft and Clark Hunt in particular. So the membership group is indeed solidified, and they have said they will pay for the entire expansion fee, which no one knows exactly what it is, but you can guesstimate that it's in the ballpark of 125 to 140 million, 150 million, something of that nature. It did not go as high, I don't think, as the $200 million venture, because people like Jim Kavanaugh has said, I'm not going to be involved in it if it's $200 million. He said that publicly.
Right.
So I don't think that is the case. They have excellent drawings of a stadium, which is right in the Midtown/downtown area, which I think, McGraw, starting with the grounds at the Arch, which is still being still under construction, but you start there and you go straight up Market. It becomes more or less a mini version of Chicago's Michigan Avenue.
Well, with Keener Plaza now being completely torn up, completely being redone from the Arch all the way up through that sort of market area up to Union Station, and then this stadium would be just west of Union Station. It's a good argument to make. But let's get back to what happened, because it seems like the MLS it announced St. Louis got an expansion team minus one tick, right? I mean, they all but basically announced we get the next team.
Precisely.
Right.
With the caveat being that there's a vote in April that has to do with expansion, not just of the team coming into the league, obviously. That's pretty much solidified as we just spoke. But the fact that the stadium has to get underway for construction, so that will go to a public vote. Now, it will go to a public vote after everything has been ironed out within the Board of Aldermen, after all the financial aspects have been taken care of. This group is not trying to force anything over on the people of St. Louis, but they think it is a viable alternative. This is a magnificent gift for the city of St. Louis that this ownership group has given. This is a sport for a changing America. This is a sport where the millennials are actively involved. You can check the demographics from around the league. So with reference to everything that's going on, yes, I totally agree with Jim. Not time to pop the cork on the champagne. You can certainly order it with the caveat that this has to pass a vote in April.
Jim, David Peacock's part of this group as well. He was the front man for Stan Kroenke trying to get the stadium built, took a lot of slings and arrows. And Jim Kavanaugh said earlier today that they're well aware of that process. They don't want that process. They want to be very open. They want to be very, very, very frank, and they are more or less saying we want a vote of the public on this. Because,
as I just mentioned a moment ago, they're not trying to force anything down the overall digestive systems, if you will, of the St. Louis public. So they're doing this for a variety of reasons. First and foremostly, to show how it can benefit the overall city as it goes forward in the years. I think sports-wise, McGraw, the two pillars on which this sports community has been built are baseball and soccer. The reason I say that, this dates back to 1875, 141 years ago. St. Louis is probably the lone city within MLS, if indeed that comes true, where you don't have to teach anything. This is not a newfound cachet to the city of St. Louis. Any degree of popularity that the sport of soccer enjoys today in our country, not the Midwest, not either coast, but in our country, is directly attributable to what St. Louis started a century ago. Is it the soccer capital of the United States any longer? No, it isn't. We don't know where that is, if indeed there is one. But this sport has become most popular among younger people who live in a downtown/midtown area, who take public transportation, all things of that nature. So this group is trying to cater to the sport and the people who are going to be patronizing the sport.
The MLS, and you know this better than I do. I don't know this stuff very well. I don't follow the MLS very well. But it looks like the MLS is a very substantial, well-grounded, well-funded, well-attended, well-watched sporting event.
That's a very accurate assessment. The league average is over 18,000 people. And in Seattle, which is an aberration, by the way, Farmer, a very good friend of mine, used to coach there and still never did understand how they drew so well. They averaged over 43,000. Every team in the league does not average 43,000. But the prime mover, one of the biggest things that has driven this to the extent that where it is now, are soccer-specific stadiums where they accommodate 18.5, 22.5, things of that nature. I did the league package for ESPN, ABC, ESPN2 from 1996 when the league first started to 2002. We were doing games, McGraw, in Giant Stadium, the Rose Bowl, getting nice crowds of 25 to 30,000. Very substantial for soccer in the United States, in North America, but thereby defeating the purpose of anything you were trying to accomplish by playing in large venues like that. May 15th, 1999, Lamar Hunt comes along, builds the very first soccer-specific stadium in Columbus, Ohio, and from there, everything is taken off. So right now, there are 20 teams. Next year, Atlanta and Minnesota come aboard. In 2018, the second team in Los Angeles, LAFC, takes place, along with, hopefully and ideally, in the league's mind, the 24th team, which would be David Beckham's team in Miami. He still hasn't ironed out all the details there. 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, St. Louis, Sacramento, San Diego, Detroit, San Antonio, other cities are lining up to do this. But first in line right now with the most solidified overall plan is the city of St. Louis.
I've interviewed you about 725 times over the years. You seem more excited today than I've ever seen you before.
Without any question, because this group, St. Louis's problem, McGraw, has always been from the top down, as opposed to the grassroots of all the players going up. From the top down, there has never been a Lamar Hunt or a Phil Anschutz here in St. Louis.
Right.
Those are prime movers of the sport in our country. Now there is one with this overall group, and with Jim Cavanaugh more or less being the face/voice of this group. He is his business expertise is beyond reproach with Worldwide Technology, who will probably do $8.2 billion this year, if not higher. He has a good feel for what the sport of soccer is supposed to do, not just in a league like USL, what St. Louis FC has done, but in particular for what it's supposed to do for a community. It's a sport for a changing America where the United States is made up of populations from everywhere else in the world. Everywhere else in the world, those citizens that come to our country, their primary sport is the sport of soccer.
How worried are you about a vote of the people? Because it seems like if you would have taken a vote on Busch Stadium, it wouldn't have passed. If you would have taken a vote on the Ram Stadium, I think most people thought that wouldn't have passed. How confident are you that the people will vote for this?
I am confident. I'm not 1,000% confident going to sit here and tell you that, positively in April, this is going to pass. I think people still have a little bit of a distaste in their mouth for giving money to a venue where they may not be ever going. However, this is a gift to the city of St. Louis for many years to come. We are getting back on the national soccer map by including everyone around the world who wants to participate as a spectator and players who are coming from around the world. But in particular, as another really solid portion of this group, they have now purchased St. Louis Scott Gallagher, Worldwide Technology Soccer Park, and St. Louis FC. So that now SCSTL is like every other soccer team, every other grouping of soccer teams in the world. You start with youth, you go to academy, you go to the semi-pro team, not a semi-pro team, but a USL team, and then you go to the MLS team. The way it's built around the world.
And that's important because that is a pipeline for great players and great continuity to breed success throughout the years.
And it's coming directly from within your own city. This is a huge part of the overall equation. Yes, positively.
Because so a young kid who starts off soccer as a little kid can someday grow up to become and play for the St. Louis team.
Without any question, and that's the way you'd like to look at it. Young players now for the academy teams, for St. Louis Scott Gallagher, St. Louis FC academy teams, they're looking for the fact that they can maybe get to a USL team where Precky's now coaching, and there's going to be a dramatic change with that coach and the overall population of his players. As a matter of fact, there's only 5 players left over from last year going to be on that roster for next year. So Precky's making a lot of changes. But now, the way you grow as a soccer city, as a soccer overall person trying to get involved in a sport professionally, is by imitation of role models in a small setting. That small setting is watching USL players / eventually MLS players. The city of St. Louis has long been absent from getting on the national soccer map. St. Louis FC has done its portion in only 2 years to get back on that national soccer map. Now, with this overall grouping of everything as one club, that further solidifies that.
The stadium pictures are beautiful. They're saying it's going to be a 20,000-seat venue with plans to grow it to 28,000. That seems to be awfully small.
You always err on the small side, McGraw, so that every game is a necessity to almost see. Every successful soccer-specific stadium around the country, from Columbus Crew Stadium, where they just had 24,000 for the United States against Mexico in the first game of the hexagonal, the latest stage of the World Cup qualifying for Russia, to the Home Depot Center, which is maybe 25,000, Avaya Stadium's 19.5, 22.5. You err on the small side so that every game is an event. And that's what happened in Kansas City. Kansas City spent $200 million on their particular venue, and it is state-of-the-art. You try to get a crowd of 20,000 to 22 with the chance, with the opportunity to grow larger for maybe more important World Cup games, which, again, puts St. Louis back on the national soccer map, makes our city a destination point for yet another sport.
Some of those friendlies they had at Busch Stadium where they sold out, and they had a women's cup game there and a couple of other friendlies. The MLS had to look at those and say, boy, that we didn't really worry about St. Louis before, but this showing shows they're ready, willing, and able to do something.
Starting with the Chelsea-Manchester City game in May of 2013, 48,263 people. Both those teams ended their seasons on a Sunday. Manchester City, instead of flying directly to St. Louis, went to New York City because they were lining up with the new MLS team. They were doing photos of new uniforms, things of that nature. They didn't get into St. Louis till late. Chelsea stayed in St. Louis, trained at St. Louis University, and everyone was enamored with the way the players presented themselves. They wanted to be in the United States. These players have a good feel for the fact that when their careers are over, perhaps they can come play here. But I'm saying that with the caveat that these players are not has-beens.
Right.
These players are still players who represent their country. But starting with that 48,263, then Real Madrid plays Inter Milan on August 10th, 2013, 54,184 McGraw at the Edward Jones Dome. And from there, both national teams, the men's and the women's. And the thing about the men's World Cup game, the World Cup qualifier, yes, it's against St. Vincent and the Grenadines. People are like, well, it's not Spain, it's not Germany. No, it's not. However, it was imperative that the United States, in that stage of World Cup qualifying, get a win, and they had to do it on home soil, so they brought the game to St. Louis.
How do you remember the people who attended the game and the date of the game? He doesn't have any notes. He has no notes. He remembers how many people went to a soccer game 3 years ago.
Well, I remember the date, August 10th, 2013, 54-184, because that was my birthday. But in particular, because Ronaldo was in town, the whole Real Madrid show came into town, led by Cristiano Ronaldo.
Holy mackerel. All right, well, this, as I said, leading up to this man has forgotten more about soccer than we'll ever know if he knows the attendance at these games. Holy mackerel. All right, so we sit and wait, and now we turn to the Board of Aldermen and the mayor's office to see what's right. That's where this story turns next.
Precisely, and I was at a different social function, totally different and not aligned with this at all, 2 weeks ago on a Wednesday night, and Mayor Slay had just come from a meeting involving all the overall finances of this particular project. He said it's well on its way. We have to tweak a few things here and there, but he is positively on board with this, as is County Executive Stenger, as is the governor, as is Dan Flynn, the CEO, the Secretary General of the United States Soccer Federation. They all know that this is the proper place for a professional soccer team to be. And had it been the power from the top down to the bottom, as I said a moment ago, that would have happened in 1996 when the league started.
Bill McDermott, soccer analyst, voice of the St. Louis FC here on the Big 550 KTRS, and a very happy man on a Friday morning. Thanks for coming in, Bill.
My pleasure. Thanks, McGraw.
926, Big 550 KTRS. Let me tell you about